cannot be contained any longer, and for the first time, a new sound comes out of your mouth. A laugh that does not want to end. A laugh that is better than being in the darkness. Suddenly, you hear others around you laugh around you too. A polyphonic embrace that encourages you to laugh more. Then you feel your mama's hands wrap around your ribs and pick you up. She bounces you on her hip, and brightly shaped people try to get your attention. The only touch you want is your mama's. The only touch that makes your heart warm like this new color. Thank you. And my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Leo. All right, so we have one more brief one here and some aerial storm Katie, and then we're going to get ready for our second panel.
Hello. Okay. So I'm actually writing a memoir, so I'm gonna read two pieces from my memoir because it's poetry and storytelling mixed. And this first piece is about my favorite aunt and her passing. Park wrench, blood splatter on the corner store glass. Brain matter across the cream square tiles that once used to be white. Chinks only caring about the money that will not be made, the orders that won't be sent out, is a loss to them. Not a single care about the lifeless Black body who once was a daughter, a mother, an aunt, and a sister. That's a loss for us. Next chart. And here's my second one. My chest collapsed, my gaze left their eyes. The night sky looked welcoming. The full moon so bright, no stars, only streetlights. The nights looked so beautiful, and I wish it could just swallow me whole and return to my mother.
Let's give it up again for our youth. Wow. All right, so if you will help me, welcome to the stage. Andre Bradley, Doug Jones, Michelle Brown, and Alan Wrights-Well. Great to be here.
It's great to be here.
Awesome sauce. Well, we are so glad to have you. Andre Bradley is a science fiction and young adult novelist. And we have Doug Jones, who's also the author of Fantasies of Future Things. I can't wait to hear about that one. And Michelle Brown is a children's book author, and a STEAM Awards honoree for outstanding service, and host of her own internet show, Collections by Michelle Brown. And last but not least, we have the writer and co-founder of Black Creators in Kid Lived, Alan Wrights-Well. Let's welcome them to Artists in the Afternoon 2025. Now, Andre, I have a confession to make.
Okay.
My confession is, I did not like science fiction growing up.
Okay.
If I had to choose, and my parents should have figured out something then, if I had to choose between Star Trek, which my dad liked, and Wonder Woman, that came on at the same time, guess who I went for? I went for Wonder Woman.
I did too.
So tell us, how did you get into science fiction?
So I am also like you. Give me Wonder Woman all day long. But the way I got into science fiction is I also like Star Trek. And so when I approach writing, I try to approach it from like a cross-cutting genre perspective. And so when I wrote Trailer Park Prince, it's not purely sci-fi, it's not purely fantasy, but you do have this aliens who comes crashing down to the American South. that makes them sci-fi. But they are in an America that has been reshaped by their arrival, and is set in an election year where a bigoted, blowhard guy is looking like the likely winner for an American election. So that kind of makes it contemporary. Mind you, I wrote this book a long time ago.
You were being prophetic, huh?
I started writing this book in like 2011 when I was in Afghanistan, and just so happens it was published last year, so yeah. But then the fact that these characters have these powers, that they have to make these tough decisions on, do they use their powers to kind of get equality through violence, or do they use their powers that they know that they can kind of reshape things, but do they use them only for the betterment of the people? That's what gives it its like fantasy element. So this book, Trailer Park Prince, has a lot.
Now, does science fiction allow you to go places that writing a traditional fiction novel, if you will, does not allow you to go?
It does in this weird way. I think we see this narrative come up a lot lately where when Haley Bailey was cast, I think she was cast as Ariel in Little Mermaid, we have a whole lot of people saying that mermaids, can't be black. But these are the same people who will watch Star Wars and see all of these, alien races of people, but then get mad when there's a black version of something that also doesn't exist in the real world. And so when I write from a sci-fi perspective, it allows me to put black people yet again in a place where we haven't been seen, and to do it in a way that's, I don't want to say palatable, I don't like using that word so much, but in a way that gives us presentation to the mainstream through a genre that people have historically liked and love and dedicate their lives to, but to get a great story with people who they weren't expecting to come.
Wow. And so we're still breaking barriers, even in literary spaces, relative to what Black and queer people can do, can write about, can be seen, can be heard. Wow. So do you have any new projects coming out?
I have quite a few things that I'm working on, and they cut through many different spaces. So I am currently writing the sequel to Trailer Park Prince, so we can expect that to come out in the next couple of years. But I also try to tell allegorical stories, or stories that kind of subvert the narrative in some ways. And with books being banned in the way that they are, I'm trying to be very clever about how I craft a story that tells something that needs to be told with an unsuspecting protagonist in a way that is going to land in these schools, and they're going to read it and not realize what plight of the minorities that this story is actually capturing. And then aside from that, I have a son who has a disability, and I've written a children's book called The Wild Wheelchair, about a boy who gets this what he thinks is a snazzy new wheelchair, turns out to be this dusty pink thing, and how his disappointment transforms into disbelief when it turns out to be magic. My son is like the light of my life, and I always want to see stories with him represented as well. And so that's taking on a new path for my writing for the past couple of years.
Wow, representation matters in every aspect. Awesome, thank you so very much. So, Doug Jones, now even though the fantasy of future things is your debut novel, you are no stranger to the literary landscape. According to your interview that appeared on Pride Index, you have other works that have been featured in anthologies, like Love Letters, Roll Call, and an anthology which is an anthology of political and social awareness and art. And Sojourner, Black Gay Voices in the Age of AIDS. So tell us about these works, and also tell us about your debut novel.
We're gonna see the cover of your book because you wrote it out. And this is the cover of my book, The Fantasies of Future Things. So how I came to writing, I love the theme that we're all talking about, disability. It is a thread through the first panel. I suspect there will to this panel as well. Disability in different areas on different things, but there's a commonality to that thread. I started writing way back in the 80s because those times were different in terms of the presence and visibility of Black people. And I use gay and queer interchangeably. But at that time, gay was a very different word from queer. Queer signified very different things than it does today around race mostly. And so my writing was very much about saving myself, saving my sanity, my visibility, the anthologies that you mentioned, Sojourner and other countries. There were groups of Black gay men coming out of New York primarily that were writing fire on page, absolute fire on page. Unfortunately, most of them are not here with us any longer because of HIV and AIDS. But that is the tradition that I write into. The story of Fantasy of the Future Things is set here in Atlanta. It is about two men who are working for a real estate development company that is targeting the neighborhood of Summerhill for redevelopment in preparation for the Olympics. For those of us who were living here at that time, we all know that's exactly what happened. There was a lot of movement, a lot of displacement, a lot of transformation of neighborhoods into what was coming for the Olympics. And these two men have to decide, Jacob and Daniel, they have to decide whether or not they are participating in the foolery, or if they're going to somehow use their power, use their strength, and who they are to fight against their employer, essentially, right, and do something different. And along the way, there's discovery of sexuality, there's them dealing with their family and creating community, they've been dealing with themselves. So, yeah, and I have a great time with it. The novel has been most recently longlisted for the Center for Fiction in New York and First Novel Prize. So cross your fingers. I'm up for that prize, for a few other things. Hopefully I'll hear about it now.
Wow, well, congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
I know we say it's an honor to be nominated, but we want you to win.
I would win too.
Thank you so much. So we also have here Michelle Brown. I like to think of Michelle as a Renaissance woman that works, who does it all. She's an advocate for African American causes, the LGBTQ plus community, and women's rights. How have those intersecting identities helped to influence your work, and especially your work as a radio host?
Well, can you hear me now? First of all, I'm glad to be up here with this great panel. It's important. I started out writing op-eds, and I think at my heart, I am a storyteller because we have stories. And it's important that we tell these stories and that people know them. I mean, it has come up in the past about knowing who we are and doing it, and also that we lose people. We lose people, and they have that opportunity to talk to them. I started out writing op-eds. Then at one point in time, I recognized I was working with youth and that there is a voice. But sometimes we have to be that voice for them. And we have to find a way to say things in a way. So I sort of morphed into poetry. So I've got 2 books of poetry, and I'm working on a 3rd, which I call Organic Empathy, because that's what it's about. It's an organic kind of empathy. Then when I started to get into the podcast, again, it's about telling stories.
Yes.
And it's so important, especially as we lose people. Recently, we lost Imam Dai Abdullah, who was one of the first openly gay imams, okay? We lost Monica Roberts, who's a trans activist. We lost Mark Loveless, who was an activist in Chicago. I talked to them. I interviewed her. And I have had people come and said, you know what? I went back and I listened. I heard our history. Our history is so important in that we go, and I've talked to many people who are here, because one of the things that I talk about in my show is that it's about people who are standing in the crosshairs of their intersectionality. And in the Wonder Woman Star Trek thing, I was Lieutenant Uhuru all the way, every day, and that's why we have to stand boldly in the crosshairs of our intersectionality. We have to be there. I show up,
Yes.
and I show up not just for me, but for people. I show up as a Black queer woman, unapologetically. I did a thing at the NAACP and I told my story because I didn't give up my Black card. I didn't give up my Black card, and people need to know, and as we show up and we're there, people recognize that we are part of that thread of the fabric of our community.
Yes.
Can't do it without us.
That's right.
Can't do it without us.
You know, we're not among them.
No, we aren't.
And multiple things can be true at the same time, right? All right, and so we have to own those spaces, as you said. We have to take and understand that we are empowered through our ownership of those spaces, and allow them to show up in various forms of representation in those individual and collective spaces.
Exactly. I mean, I show up and sometimes where they're expecting a poet and they get me, I show up in places where you want to talk about children's books and you get me, I'm going to show up about who I am and challenge you to think about things.
Yes.
Now I'm going to tell you about the children's book. I had some friends, because you have to tell stories, and who were lesbian, and they had a daughter, and she asked me hard questions. So I told this story through the vision of a dog. And we talk about bullying, we talk about same-sex families. We find out about how, because who you are, the message comes through different ways. So this is a message that a parent can talk to the kid. And then I can go and do it, but I could go on.
Yes.
But I'm not. I'm not, because I'm here with these wonderful gentlemen, all who are doing the same thing.
Well, you answered my next question anyway, which was to tell us about the children's book and the message that you were trying to convey with two children through your work. So thank you so very much for that. So Alan writes well. Tell us who you are. Tell us about your work, and tell us about this organization that you founded called Black Creators in Kid Lit. Why is there a need for such an organization?
Hi everyone, my name is Alan Wells, and I'm a mechanical engineer professionally, and I'm also a children's book author. The reason why I co-founded Black Creators in Kid Lit, it was an opportunity to sort of like demystify and clarify the traditional publishing industry for children's book writers. Because sometimes when they enter those spaces, the publishing industry will try to take advantage of you. They'll try to sort of short sell you and short sell your stories. They'll try to tell you how you should actually write your story. Like you have a lot of white editors coming in and telling you how you're supposed to tell your story. And as for Black Creators in Kid Lit, we're trying to teach authors and illustrators to sort of advocate for themselves and advocate for the stories that they're writing.
Wow, that's amazing, because we're seeing like never before so many people who are self-publishing, again, with online platforms in the last, I would say 15 to 20 years, we have seen that explosion. Part of the reason, I believe, is the fact that traditional publishing houses have sought to control the narrative. And by self-publishing, yes, you have to be everything to yourself in terms of marketing, publishing, editing, and everything else. However, one's ownership of their own story and the ability to tell that story is priceless. Speak to that.
So in regards to that, with the with traditional publishing, you still own the rights and everything to your story. But with respect to that, I feel like traditional publishing, it kind of gives you more of an advantage because publishers they have, they have the resources, they have the money, they have the backing. They are in tune with the schools, like with schools and bookstores and booksellers. So I would say, I guess publishing is like, I guess, a very advantageous route there.
Yeah, it's can be a double-edged sword.
Well, yeah, it can be, but I feel like like now there are a lot of editors, and there are a lot of Black editors coming into the industry, and they are actually working with these authors and illustrators of color, and really being true advocates for them. So these gatekeepers are now sort of stepping in and supporting these authors and illustrators of color.
Wow. So with that being said, and we're seeing movement in that area, when we look at the overall landscape, and this is a question for all of you all, relative to where we find ourselves at this point in time, I never thought that I would be alive to witness the erosion of what our parents and grandparents marched for, the blatant disregard for basic human rights. How will you all, as authors, radio hosts, filmmakers, poets, how will you use, or how are you using your voice to combat where we find ourselves at this moment in time?
I would say for me personally, it's my responsibility, like as a children's book author, as an engineer, as a decent human being, to create stories for kids so that they're able to see themselves, and so that they're able to see what the world is like and understand that their perspective is not the only perspective out there.
Yeah, I was in Princeton Pride. And needless to say, I'm a minority. And there was a small group of students who weren't from Princeton, they were from another school, and they were there, and they were asking, what is the role? Why should I do this? And what we talk about, if you don't know the past, and I told them how important our voice is, because in revolution and social change, if you want to do it, if we are not visible and we are not saying things, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
And that they have a responsibility to say things in their voice, in their time, to influence what happened, not be silent.
So we have a responsibility to speak out at the appropriate time when it's our turn. Okay. Okay. Doug, I saw your face.
I don't know if there's an appropriate time to speak out against hostility against one's life.
So the appropriate time is
The
now.
appropriate time is now.
The appropriate time is now.
And we have to remember this hostility, this violence against us, right? Because this is violence that we're experiencing right now. This violence against who we are and our realities, against how we live, and not just LGBTQ people, but people of color, disenfranchised people. If we're being realistic about it, against poor white people, right? This violence that is happening against us, I mean, we have got to fight against this, because we as Black folks know that this is not new.
Yeah.
There was a comment in the earlier panel about new government. I would just say evolved government, right? The hostility that has happened and that has transformed and sneaked its way into being Donald Trump we should be clear that it was always there, right? It was always there. Trump happened to just take, the scab off the wound. And here we are. And so there is never a time where we have to ask permission to fight for who we are. We just have to do it. That's my voice. My contribution is to the individual story that connects to the communal story. Yes. And I think that it happens with all of us. I think what all of us are talking about here are incredibly individual stories that reflect the mass, that reflect the experience of the other, and that is collective, and that the other, whoever the other is, can find their individual selves in our different stories. Absolutely.
I'll say Gregory Rogar wrote in Wicked, which is one of my favorite books. He writes this line that says, "When time is a crucible, when the air is full of crises, those who are the most themselves are the victims." And that's kind of happening now, where we're looking at people who are going out to be their authentic selves, to write the way they want to write, who feel targeted by what's happening. I have friends who have green cards who've been offered contracts to write, plays and tell stories about, an immigrant's plight, but they're afraid to tell that story now because they don't want their green cards to be revoked. Because by being themselves, they are going to be the target of what's happening. But Gregory also writes this wonderful character, Alpha of the Wicked Witch of the West, who fought against someone who was very heinous. And so, from my perspective, I'm looking at what's happening, and I'm trying to always write characters who aren't afraid to be themselves and who are reflective of my intended readers, because it's the platform that I have. And so, through good storytelling, through reflecting the now, and showing that we can be strong and try not to be afraid. These are scary times.
Yes. Don't stop writing. Don't stop telling the truth. The truth always has a way of coming out. So it is our jobs to continue to be that voice, even in darkness, to continue to illuminate what it is that those stories that are counter stories that challenge the traditional narratives and that challenge the status quo, because somebody is waiting on our voice, because our story is not just our story alone. Oftentimes it's somebody else's story too, and it just takes one of us to have the courage to tell it. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Yes. All right, so don't forget, as we transition to our third and final panel, don't forget to see Dre over here if you want an opportunity to win one of the baskets. Let's see, Dre, can you tell me from the audience here, what you get for how many tickets? What's the price?
Okay, so for one ticket is for $5, 3 tickets for 10, and 10 tickets for 25. If you want to increase your chances to win one of these nice baskets.
And we have some wonderful artwork in the marketplace as well, so don't forget that as well. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for our panelists. Thank you so very much for being here.
event coordinator.
How's everybody doing today? Okay, there we go. I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce you to some wonderful young people that I get to work with. Some of you who know me, I know Michelle. She's been watching me on my journey since I was a little, I don't know what I call myself back then, a little bandy boy, new game, whatever I was. But that evolution is made possible through the mentorship and the guidance of cross-generational mentorship. I wear on my shirt today an image of Bayard Rustin that I got at the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. And I'm often reminded that he was a mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and others. And so I'm gonna get out of the way and allow these young people and our moderators to tell their stories and their experiences for themselves. And y'all are in for a treat. I love that we're finishing our panels with our young people. So welcome, Youth Belong, and our moderator.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everybody's well. My name is, just to give a brief introduction, my name is Nelson Quinones. I am an associate professional counselor in the state of Georgia, nationally certified counselor. Very proud, double ADC graduate, received my bachelor's degree at Morehouse College, and then recently graduated from Clark Atlanta University with my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. And I am a private practice therapist now. We're gonna step out on faith, y'all. Step out on faith like this program is today. And I'm actually, I specialize in sex therapy. And I also work with individuals living with trauma and with LGBTQIA support and any concerns that you have that would bring you back to life counseling. So here with our panel, great to meet all of you, great work. Can we applaud again our two presenters earlier, Ms. Leah and Ms. Make sure I get your names right, Ms. Julia, Ms. Ariel, I apologize. So first of all, we know that each of you have a great love for poetry, each and every single one of you. So beyond Leo and Ariel or Storm, who we've already heard from, as a way, please introduce yourselves. Julia and Kyla, please introduce yourself and share one piece that you have with us of your poetry.
Hi guys, I'm Julia. Okay, I would like to thank y'all for having us all here with you guys today. It's really a blessing. I would like to start off by doing my poem called "But Still I Stand." Okay, it's a call and response poem. So when I say freedom, you guys say freedom. When I say freedom, you guys say freedom. We're gonna try that, okay. It don't make sense, but okay, so I'm gonna say justice, and then you guys say justice after me, okay? So say justice. Justice. Yes, y'all, yeah. Okay, y'all get it?
Yes.
Okay. Georgia raised, I'm not LGBTQ, but I still take a stand. When rights are attacked, we all must demand. The storm is heavy, overpowering sometimes even, but I won't turn away. An ally shows up in the night or day. History reminds us of what can be done. When white hands marched, the struggle wasn't won. They chose justice, they walked side by side. Say justice.
Justice.
And let it be our guide. Same when men spoke up for women's rights, knowing their silence will never make it right. An ally means presence, not just a name. Say hope.
Hope.
And carry the flame. Georgia raised, my voice is shy, but courage grows each time I try. Together we rise, no one denied. Say freedom.
Freedom.
With power and pride, and let the light be your guide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyla, and my poem is called, the poem I'll be reading to you is The Spark I Carry. I carry wisdom in the curve of my smile. I listen with patience. I'll sit for a while. My words build bridges. My laughter's a flame. I spark up joy when I enter the frame. I know when the room feels heavy with rain. I lighten the mood. I ease some of the pain. I stand as an advocate, steady and clear. I fight for my people. I hold them near. I care with my hands. Where the road feels torn, I lift up the tire. Help hope be reborn. In teamwork I flourish. In rhythm and sync. My courage runs deep. My love is in me. Community grows everywhere that I stand. Justice and joy flow straight from my hand. Weird, black, and brilliant, I rise up above. I move with my person, my power, my love.
All right, so Leo and Ariel, question for you. Can you please talk about how poetry is a valuable means for your self-expression?
Poetry just allows me to say what I want without thinking, without worrying about if anything is spelled correctly, if I'm using the words correctly. It just allows you to just write, and it's more emotional, and it'll make sense once you just get it all out and you kind of organize it in that way. So it's not as structured, because I was an English major, so everything was like very structured, so poetry is the opposite.
So it gives you freedom of expression, freedom of, without any worry about how's it going to sound, how's it going to look.
Yes.
You get to organically present, as they were saying earlier in the previous panel, showing up.
Yes.
Okay. What about Leo?
To be very verbal and very transparent, that self-expression is very hard for me. It's something that I have to practice because of my intersecting identities and intersecting histories and trauma. I've turned to writing to be that voice for me. Like, I feel like my writing voice is a lot stronger than how my day-to-day voice used to be. So poetry is that space where I feel like I can just scream onto the page. And then I can edit, some of that more emotionally charged language to get my point across. But like reading the biographies of like poets I really admire, like Lucille Clifton and Gwendolyn Brooks and Rita Dove and Ezek Hemphill, I just feel like I'm in the part of a legacy of people who needed their voice to be like enlarged, enhanced, that they were feeling in their lives.
So it's like your words have power.
So much power.
I get it.
I'm standing in my power.
I get it. Thank you so much for that contribution. My grandfather used to tell me all the time, the late Bishop Claude Timothy would say, words are like seeds that produce after their own kind. Be careful what you water them with. Be careful what you water them with. And so Richard, good afternoon to you as well. Can you please tell us about what you're producing today and how you use visual art for your self-expression?
Hi guys, my name is Richard. Today I won't be, showing my visual art, but I have written a poem.
Okay, just switch it up. Some flexibility and creativity, of course. Yes.
This poem is called Let the Paint Talk.
Okay.
I paint because words are not always enough. Color reaches places conversations cannot. The quiet spaces inside of persons where grief, fear, and hope sit together, waiting to be seen. In every brushstroke, I offer a hand. In every canvas, I leave room for someone else's story. I've watched friends find pieces of self in swirls of blues, in every steady calm of green, in the fire of the red that refuses to be ignored. Art teaches me to listen without interrupting, to guide without pushing, to help lead and thrive in its own space.
Thank you, Richard. Basically DBT groups, and one of the things obviously that we would engage in is some painting. And now the facilitator is supposed to engage painting, not a skill of mine. However, to see their ability to express whatever they were thinking, whatever they were feeling, and use those paintbrushes and articulate what their thoughts were that they couldn't necessarily put into words. So thank you for even bringing in your expression of art and putting that into words as well. Let's applaud our panel one more time. So this is for all of you. What does it mean to have an organization like Youth Belong and the Georgia Youth Advocacy Fellowship for Queer Youth and their allies?
It's a safe space. It's allowing us to network with our peers as well as our older people we look up to. It just gives us an opportunity to be ourselves, even if we come from different backgrounds that may involve trauma. It's a space where we don't have to think, what would my parent think about this, or whoever may not understand. It's just a space where you don't have to think about negative thoughts or thoughts that may hinder your creativity. It just allows you to be a flower and bloom.
To be a flower and to bloom, safety, and yes, networking does build net worth.
Yes.
So yes.
I agree with Storm. Youth Belong is not an organization too, but also a family. Youth Belongs gives us a chance to speak out when we feel as though we're not heard. It gives adults the insight, the feeling of, like the feeling. You see how I'm trying to gather the words. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
I'm trying to gather the words, but it's giving us the chance to speak up when we never really as youth. We're never really heard because we're considered as kids.
You don't know anything.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
You still figuring things out.
Youth Belong is giving us the chance to speak up and be heard through adults and through us. And that's really where that all comes in. That's why I really adore Youth Belong, and I can see it going somewhere, being something.
So Youth Belong allows you to communicate to the adults to how to effectively advocate.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Anyone else, please?
I'm gonna quickly say that I joined this year after being introduced to NTHE. And honestly, when I turned 25, I was like, all right, I'm an old woman now, I don't need to be with the youth. But I know, right? But then being in this group, I realized that there was just more invigoration that I have within me to connect with people, around my age, people who are younger. And it's just been really a dream of mine to be in more youth-led spaces, because that's where really change happens. And I'm just grateful to be here with you all.
So Youth Belong helps you to feel some belonging within yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
To me, it means having people that care about the youth, having people who want the youth, who wants to help the youth express themselves more and fully, and make sure they're outgoing and growing up as beautiful, amazing people, just being themselves without having to go through so much problems. And then they have that one support system, which is the youth organization groups and all the advocates.
So a support system, an effective support system that enables growth, that enables some blossoming.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I like all of you guys' answers. Y'all did answer good. To me, Youth Belong, it really gives us a sense that somebody else is there to support when we feel like there's nobody around to help us or feels the same way as us, because there's like it was stated earlier, there's always somebody who has the same story as you.
True.
So I feel like Youth Belong it gives us that sense of protection, and that there's somebody out there that agrees with us, that wants us to be heard, that wants us to be advocated for. It helps us like be proud of our true identities, and it helps us bring out other people. It encourages us to help when we can in our community. And I think that at the end of the day, Youth Belong, it really just, it's like a shelter. Like where it's something that you know you can run to when you have nobody or nothing. It just gives us that sense of a home feeling that like, no, it's a judgmental free space. Like you're not judged there, and everybody, they're on your side. They're on your side, and they want to help you, and they want to help you become a better you. That's why I feel as though Youth Belong. Like that's why I like it so much, because it just helps us be the better us. Yes.
All right. So we all know it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it wasn't Maslow. It's actually from a more indigenous orientation, where we understand that psychological growth and blossoming begins when we feel safe. It begins when we have shelter. It begins when we have an opportunity, not just somewhere to close our eyes, but somewhere where we can gather and close our eyes and imagine and feel safe and connected. So thank you all for your input. Next question, and in terms of your mental health, what are your thoughts right now about how young people are coping in America, given the assault on our individual freedoms and LGBTQ plus rights? How are you feeling as it relates to your mental health? How we're coping today?
I say everyone is coping in their own way. It has taken a toll on a lot of grants that I work with or in collaboration with, because the money has dwindled. So now I felt like we already wasn't reaching enough, and now we have to pull back even more due to finances. It's bringing people anger, frustration. Some people are even thinking about leaving America. Even myself may leave and go to London. And it's creating the fleet, yes, within us. And I'm intrigued on how these next 3.5 years will go.
Understood. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your honesty.
Can you read that question?
Sure. So, and I'll summarize. As it relates to mental health right now, the conditions, how are you coping? And how do you feel about how young people are adjusting and coping as well?
How I'm adjusting really is through poems and art like we're doing today.
Yes, sir.
That can really like bring out a bunch of stuff in people that, you know, people can't speak out about, so they use it art. But I really feel as though the youth, we have more places to lean on because of the internet, rather than people who didn't have access to the internet back then. So there's different support groups online, different clubs, different places you could go and find where you feel as though you belong. And really, the society we live in now, with all the hate crimes and stuff, and you know, all the, you know, mental diminishing that goes on, I really feel as though what we're doing here today, or you know, in general, really can really help and guide different individuals.
So using art as an opportunity to cope effectively as well, along with support groups online, projects to look into, research to find more ways to cope effectively.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. All right, Leo.
Personally, it's just been really numbing sometimes to just, and I feel like maybe some of y'all can agree that it's just like an onslaught of just news, statistics, things being taken away from us. And I get so in survival mode of like, all right, I just gotta get through work, I just gotta go home, brush my teeth, take a shower, and that's really just what I have to focus day to day. And it's like group like Youth Belong, who take me out of my, human primal bubble and just say, all right, you're part of a big community, you're part of a bigger picture of people who have been fighting for these rights for 400 plus years. And, it's also me reminding myself the wealth of privileges that, people our age have with more like, we have all this information just in our palm of our hands. And I sometimes think back to what our ancestors had to go through, and, I sleep on the bed, I'm in an apartment that I live with my lovely partner, John, and, we have a dog together, and we have a life, and I'm just like, wow, like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, queer people, was that even possible,
Right.
So it's just like a reminder, like, so much has changed for the better, and now we need to work together to just keep ourselves sane.
So you allow yourself to identify the positives of the moment, even with the coexistence of the real negatives, the real pressures, real adversities.
Right. I think that's like called like pessimism, optimism. You just have to like look for the optimism while being real honest of like, these times are taxing. These times are meant to wear you down so that you're just focused on yourself. But it's us coming together, and like events like this reminds us, oh, we are together. We are powerful.
Thank you, Leo. All right.
This question for me is a little deep, but I don't think we have time for all that. So to share my words out, my thoughts on mental health and the coordinators today, and I am angry. Because what about people my age?
Yes.
I'm young, and I'm young, Black, and queer in today's world. And it's like I have to worry about how am I gonna live by myself in the future when I go off to college? But I have to worry about my sexuality being used as a weapon towards me. How am I supposed to keep myself safe as a Black, queer young woman? It angers me because I shouldn't have to worry about my survival as a 14. I shouldn't have to worry about how equal I am to white people, maybe straight people. I don't want to have to worry about if my opportunities will also be equal from people who are not like me. What about my future?
So what about Kyla?
What about everyone's future my age? What about young Black queer people? What do we get? What will we have in the near future? Will we have any opportunities left?
I respect that, Kyla. You are allowing yourself to question. You're doing what I encourage clients to do, is to lean in. Feel the feelings a little bit. Feel the fear, feel the anxiety, so that it also allows you to feel your awareness to develop some strength within, to develop that ability to attach and to effectively detach, because you're right, you're 14. Kyla should just be 14. Kyla should just be herself. Kyla should be able to experiment. Kyla should not have to measure herself against what even is considered normal. However, for where Kyla is, thrive on the power of the moment, thrive on the love that you feel in the room, universality, and the reassurance that we're gonna be all right. Right?
I think that's why I just love being in a group like this, like Youth Belong, because it gives me a support system. It gives me hope that I will have a chance to do what I wish to do in the near future. And that I know I have an opportunity to grow up and have stuff that maybe my parents didn't have when they were young.
Right. Thank you very much. All right. Waiting on you.
My honest opinion on this situation, I think young people do have the right to be scared because their rights have been snatched. Their rights have been snatched right in front of them. It's like everything is just getting taken away from them before they can grow up and realize how much power they have to advocate for themselves. I feel like there's the younger people in our generation that are not associated in groups like this, but are like us, they can be lost. But in a way, I feel they can try to cope by helping themselves and helping the others like feel comfortable and feel free how they are. I say that, sorry guys, I say that we have the right to be scared until something is fixed within our community, our governments, the way that people look at everybody around us. And I mean everybody, not just us. We do have the right to be scared because things are being taken just like this and we never know what's gonna happen next. But I also feel like in the moment, you should enjoy the moment.
Agreed.
You definitely should enjoy the moment while it lasts. Enjoy the little things before you worry about the bigger things. And, you know, I think we should honestly all, not all, but I think it would be better if we tried to support one another again, other than using another person's identity against them. So
that'll lead me right to the next question. You can start it and we'll close out. So thank you for that. And I want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly, Julia, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Julia, how can youth, as leaders of tomorrow, how can you use your voice and or your artistry to ensure young people are prepared to fulfill the LGBTQ Institute's mission to cultivate the next generation of advocates? So how are you going to use this moment? How are you going to use what you just shared to push forward and to help heal forward with cultivating the next generation of advocates?
I think I would use this moment, so I would piggyback off of this moment to show people that I actually care about what other people are going through. Because we were a part of the Summer 3.0 program where I wrote a PSA on medical mistrust. So I feel as though just because you are young and you cannot vote does not mean that you cannot have a voice or an opinion.
Yes.
Where this is where I'm setting off from. I'm leaving young people to understand that just because you're young doesn't mean that you can't have an input on situations like this. Our voice now, you can listen to us or you can decide not to, but you can listen to us and advocate and piggyback off of what we're doing to help the community become greater, to help everybody become the better them. That's what we want to do. We want to help everybody become the better you.
We want to empower each other.
Yes, empower each other. It's good to uplift each other and just be there for everybody. So I think the youth can really take these words into consideration to let it be known that people are there with them, people support them, people care about them.
And that they're not alone.
Right. Yes.
All right, Carla, what about you? How would you use this moment, this opportunity to cultivate the next generation of advocates?
I use it to send a message as we do have opportunities, we do have a strong voice, and we can have our own opinions about this situation.
Absolutely can.
And that it'd be better for us to work. It takes a village.
Yes, it does.
It takes a village to get things out there, to push messages towards the youth, and to make sure everybody understands. If you don't want to understand, at least consider what is being said today. And take this as I need for the future youth advocates to understand that it is best to help others instead of trying to worry about yourself, but also put yourself first so you aren't just drained and just not you, just a walking shell of nothing when helping others. Because helping others is like, it takes a whole bunch of emotions and time and patience to help others when they are in need. But I think to shorten this out, I want this to just be a message to the future youth advocates that it is okay to have different emotions. It's okay to be queer. It's okay to be figuring yourself out at a young age. Just please find you a good support system and a community that accept you so you can have opportunities to grow up without worrying and being in fear for being young and weird.
I like to update it with it takes a village, but the village is inclusive of all ages, all thoughts, all opinions.
I like that.
So,
Yeah.
sure, so how would you use this moment? How would you, as a youth, as a leader as well, take this opportunity to fulfill the LGBTQ's institute, the LGBTQ agenda? Cultivating the next generation of advocates. Anybody have any questions about the gay agenda? That's it. So how would you use that? Yes.
As I am soon to enter my 30s, I'm thinking a lot more about like this gap between, especially in the queer community, of like generations are in silos. Like, the youth are here, the middle age here, the elders are here, and honestly, I am listening more, I'm hearing more. Just to give quick context, I am a grant writer for some youth organizations like the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children and the Junebug Foundation. And I think the biggest thing I'm learning is that I need to listen and be quiet, sit down and listen to experience I haven't heard before. Sure, people will want to hear my voice and my artistry, and that's where I really shine. But what makes my role as a storyteller for other people is that I want them to advocate for themselves. I don't want to be their mouthpiece,
So you want to model, social modeling.
I love that, social modeling. Yeah, that's where I feel like I shine the most. And I use my presence to get them to have a spotlight on them. That's where I feel like we got PC Stephen. So, for us in the audience, I know there's a lot of stigma, stereotypes of what youth culture is now, but I'm telling you from that we're all human, we're all scared, and we just want to be loved too.
Right, come on, Rachel. Yes. Just wise, the wisdom, a lot of us in the room are over 30. And in our generation, we were told that young people were not to be seen or heard. And what we're discovering is that they were also told not to be seen nor heard. And so there is a communication barrier that we are allowing to persist to a certain extent. And thankfully, this event says to that barrier, we're not just going to destroy you with haste, we're going to destroy you with strategy. So to repeat the question, how will you as a youth leader use this opportunity to extend the LGBTQ Institute's mission of cultivating the next generation of advocates?
I would use this instance for future youth, just for them to see that, because it's going to be the future. I was once in their shoes. I was a kid before.
Right now, yes.
I was once a kid. We maybe have to experience the same things, seen something the same, and I would use this just to say, like, I've been in your shoes. I know you don't have to. I'm always listening. You don't have to think I'm just an adult that does not know what teens go through, because I once was a teen.
So empathy is what I'm hearing.
Yes, empathy.
Okay.
And I will also use like paintings, murals, poems, because nowadays kids they don't really like forward conversations, like forward conflict. They use like art. They will see art like on the street, and it can mean something so much to different people in different ways. It can touch the heart, it can touch the soul rather than words. So I would use this instance to spread a PSA about the youth and that we matter. And I would just, use this and just grow from it. Because from here, I can be someone so much better, and I'll just further understand the youth as being youth.
Right, come on, Storm. Close us down, please.
I would say just leading by example, because I know when I first graduated from Spelman and I started working with nonprofit, it's like I wanted to do so much but didn't know how. So I had to watch before I can just lead. So cultivate them by just still continue to do what we do. And God forbid if anything happened to us, they'll know how to pick up, like this should still happen, Artists in the Afternoon should still happen. Freedom Summer should still happen, Atlanta Black Pride should still happen, no matter what happens to the middle youth, middleweight, or whatever, the elders, no matter y'all should be able to pick up exactly where we left off. It should still continue to grow. And just like understanding how everything works, because even when I first started out, I'm like, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? And now I understand, oh, it's the finances.
Yes.
So just understand. So just understanding that and how it works and how to lean in our community where someone can give us resources or give their services for that event. Just learn how to work and make an event like this happen annually.
So what I'm hearing from you, which is truly an existential threat of your school, service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so want to say thank you again to our amazing youth panelists. Can we applaud them one more time, please? King, Richie Marbury, Leo Martinez, Tyler Hartman, and Jalea Johnson. One more time, everybody.
And also to our my big brother, the doctor. Thank you, future doctor. Let's give it up one more time for Youth Belong. We are indeed so just grateful that you've taken your time to come and share with us. NTHE puts it this way: if young people would talk to old people, it would make us a better people all around. Agreed. And so a lot of times we don't spend enough time listening to you all and hearing your voices. And so you all have blessed my heart today for what you had to say. And I will take it and move forward. So thank you so very much for being here. Tim M. West, Executive Director, we appreciate you so much for the work that you continue to do. And to all of the parents and supporters of these amazing young people, we applaud you. We applaud you today as well. Thank you so very much for sharing them with us. All right, so that brings us to the conclusion of Artists in the Afternoon 2025. Thank you all so very much for coming. Thanks to all of the panelists that have come from near and far to be a part. And thank you to my brother, Nelson Quiones, for serving as moderator of this particular session. So it's not over. The marketplace is open. There are vendors there where you can go in and purchase some books. And we also have, some food in there just in case you want to eat while you're purchasing books. We don't want to have you sit for an hour and a half, 2 hours and not feed you. Amen? All right, so thank you again, once again, and we are going to adjourn and go to the marketplace. Yes.
You have the lights up here for me? Can you what? Oh, the lights? Yes. Yes. Okay.